mark right here.
Yep.
There we go. Okay. A phenomenal meal and 2 bottles of wine later, it's time to do this interview that we've actually been really looking forward to, because we love getting to share our friends here with our friends in LA and our friends in New York and our friends in all over the place, and this is no exception. We have friends that come out and visit us, and 2 of those friends are Jorjeana Marie and Philip Mosnes, who's helping set up this whole shoot. He's back there drinking my scotch.
What scotch?
There's no scotch. There's no scotch. So it's late night here on a Sunday night, and they're visiting for a quick weekend, and we get to hang out and shoot the BS. Jorjeana and Philip are 2 of the most committed, insane artists that I know. These people are the real incarnation when you think of eccentric and crazy and fun and childlike and loving and beautiful and funny and so smart and just constantly open for play. When you think of that, you're thinking of Jorjeana and Philip. And so we're going to spend some time hanging out with Jorjeana. Yeah, because you're going to be coming back and forth and teaching at the studio, and I don't even know where to begin, honestly. Like, we met in Burbank at Base Camp Cafe on our bikes, and we were like, why do we know each other? Why do we know each other? And Ashley was like, just leave them alone. I'm like, no. There's some reason. I don't know why we know each other, but we know each other. And you kind of felt the same thing.
Yes, and thank you for that amazing introduction. I feel like my life purpose is fulfilled, that somebody saw me as all those things.
And more.
Oh,
Which everybody's going to find out about tonight.
Yeah, I'm a bit of a fan of yours and have been for a long time. So because I had met you through the foundation at SAG.
Right.
You were on a panel, and I was so blown away with your story. First of all, I've never met a person who did their own demo and it really worked out.
Well, to be fair, I didn't do it. I hired somebody to do it.
Okay.
And she was worth every penny.
Okay, good.
Every penny and more.
Okay, good. Yeah, because I hadn't heard the story of somebody kind of getting that together and it being something that led to so much. Your career seemed to blossom with that, and I had tried something similar in New York, and nothing happened. Just crickets, because I'd paid $100 for my demo.
Right.
And when you pay $100 for anything, you maybe get a good meal, a great meal.
Right.
But not a great demo.
Right.
For voiceover or really anything.
Right.
I don't know.
Yeah.
So I was blown away by that story and hearing your demo and hearing your work and how prolific you had been working in voiceover. So I was a fan before we had even gotten a chance to meet, and
oh, that's cool.
And so getting to know you has been like a real thrill. But I definitely started as like just admiring your path as really a rebel, because I definitely connect with that. Like I do. It's a spirit that I think it doesn't work for everybody, but those who it does, we're meant to have that, and I think everybody can have a little bit of a rebellious spirit. And this is a good time to have a rebellious spirit, because like so much with technology, so much of the industry is changing, and you can be working from anywhere doing all kinds of things, and you can also, it's also a time where you can be doing multiple things, which is, I know you've had a lot of great guests on, you've interviewed them that have really focused on one thing, and I'm just sort of like, I'm a bit of a patchwork quilt, but I love patchwork, so I'm happy with who I am, but I've done a lot of these different things.
Well, and I think anymore, if you're not a series reg, or you're not, killing it in animation and you spend all day in your booth, you have to be a multi-hyphenate, You can't just rely on one thing anymore.
I think about it a bit, and even if I was asked to, I couldn't. Because I get asked a lot. Like, well,
What do you mean?
if you had to pick.
You couldn't what?
Do one thing.
Oh, no.
You know, if I got offered, like, the creme de la creme series regular, it would not be enough for me.
Right.
Because I really enjoy being a playwright. I really enjoy making people giggle. So if I was a series regular and it was a drama, that would be a total dream come true.
Right.
But you know I'd be off on the side like a squirrel. Like,
making up voices.
like,
talking to the crafty
weird.
people.
Yes. I'm going to take up knitting.
Right,
Like,
right.
I'm just like, variety is the spice of life. Like that cliche saying like lives inside of me, and so when I get to do something and can get these different aspects of it and really work it and spend a lot of years and years doing something, there's a part of me that's like an octopus tentacle going, what's over there?
Right, totally. But I think, I mean, the creative drive, that need to do something different can be expressed in so many ways, you know, and I mean, Ashley expressed it tonight in cooking dinner. You know, you express it in in everything. You express it in how you walk down the street because maybe you want to skip a step. Well, that's you being playful, and that same playful spirit is what sparks creativity. And when you can express that and experience that in so many facets of life, it's just like, why wouldn't you?
And you create a moment that somebody else has never experienced. So with what Ashley made, it's like I've never had a citrus like glaze or sauce on something, and the combination of flavors leads to this like this is wonderful, but I have nothing to compare it to because I've never had this before. And that's what each of us can do in the world is we can be a flavor somebody else didn't know existed.
And isn't that kind of what is happening right now? Like meta.
Yeah.
That we're learning to accept other people's uniquenesses and differences.
It really is.
And
Really is.
It feels like we're going backwards in many ways. But as artists, as tellers of stories, as students of the human condition, which I hate that phrase because it sounds so douchey. The human condition. Let's talk about the human condition, right? I hate that shit.
And yet
I've used it 3 times.
But we're all in it.
We're all in it.
So it's like we are all having this.
Right.
And anything else is a denial of it.
Right. Yes. So if
Because I like to say I'm an alien, but I'm still like, I'm totally lying. I might be totally weird and strange. And
well,
like, cause
you're an alien.
I like to play aliens. I like to play inanimate objects. And I like to do like oddball things. I really revel in that. Or being a kid is like the highlight of my day is being hired to be a child.
Right.
It's like there's nothing more fun to connect with that aspect of myself. But that is still very much the human condition because we were all children.
Totally. And we need to go back to that.
Some of us have just forgotten.
Most of us have. And as students of what it means to be human, we're the ones who have to be the John the Baptists of the situation and kind of be like calling into the desert going, hey everybody, the truth is over here in a lot of ways, you know, as artists, as revolutionaries, as whatever you want to call us. You know what I mean?
What you said about like now being more like open to just this connection of learning about like just the world and people in it. I think that as soon as you enter into the artist community, whether for me it was theater or the poetry group or anywhere where artists get together, poetry slam or stand up or a cooking class, somebody who wants to do something creative, when they get together, you just sort of sign an invisible contract of compassion. You have to, because the people there are mostly going to be very different because we're drawn to it for whatever reasons we are, but there's usually some really unique people involved in any aspect of the arts.
Well, that's the thing that I've one of the things that I've come to really love about teaching is that everybody in my classes feels like an outsider. No matter where they go, they feel like they do not belong. So when you get a bunch of, weirdos together in one room, it's like, okay, let's all agree to make believe now.
Yeah. And we all want the same thing when we take a class. We all want to know how to do the thing. And the thing that you realize, or that I've realized, is you are the thing. You've been the thing from the beginning. It's you. Yeah. It's the ugly, dirty, dark parts and the shiny bits that you try to show the world, but it's all you. Yeah. It's the thing that somebody tells you to change about yourself. It's the thing that you try to hide. It's the thing that you don't want to tell somebody else. It's you. Yeah. And that's the thing that will take you to where you want to go, is embracing the disgusting parts of yourself.
Well, yeah, because who wants to watch a TV show where everybody gets along?
Or looks the same.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, that's absolutely right. It's our individual experiences, it's what we bring. It's who we are. And I think, God, we're getting deep and meta quick here. Is that now worse than it was before because of social media and this idea that you can be famous for being this personality, you can be this influencer? I feel like I see a lot of the motivation for what we're doing here from that place instead of from a bit more of an organic place, from a...
Yes, I think that, I don't mean to interrupt you, but
Not at all.
I want to jump in and just say that I think it's always been that way. I think from the birth of the film camera and capturing a person's image, it's been that way. There's people that are willing to explore and play, and it doesn't mean anything except for it could mean something, and people who are trying to make actual art. Right. And everything in between and people trying to collaborate and people trying to make it just about their thing, vanity projects and all of that. I think it comes back to being human, is there just are all kinds, and there's room for all of that now.
There really is.
As a person who's spent a lot of time training and in the back of a theater and working in theater, not as an actor, but as a craftsperson of the stage, of building sets and designing props and making costumes and all of the rigging. I mean, I've basically done every aspect of putting on a show, including stage management, house management, lighting design, hanging lights, all of it.
Right.
As a person who has done all of that, to meet and see a new generation of people using Instagram to create something for themselves, I actually have an appreciation for it. I mean, they're working really hard. Yeah. It's not easy to be an influencer.
That's
you have to understand who you're making those pictures for. You have to know framing. You have to know colors. You have to know what will pop. You have to know how to look a certain way. You have to be vulnerable to get the best responses. There's a lot that goes into it that it's really easy for somebody like myself who has done the theater program and I'm a serious actor, which I like to think every now and then I am, because I have done that training. But I also appreciate that there's play and there's messiness and there's hard work. And I don't think that an influencer is doing, and even the word is kind of a funny thing, and I know we kind of scoff at that and make jokes about influencer, but a person who posts their life and makes a living from it isn't any different from myself being in a commercial.
It's a good way of putting it. I guess I'd never really considered that.
That's why they're part of the union too.
Oh, that's interesting.
Which I didn't have a problem with. I know some people did, and I know we're not necessarily going to get political about things like that, but I know that was a recent thing that had happened, and I think that some people that maybe leaned more towards theater, acting, I just love to say theater like that, acting like that, and a little bit of throat clearing.
Yes, quiet.
But it's if you want to be an actor and this is your route to it, welcome.
it really takes all kinds, doesn't it?
It does. And we started that way. Vaudeville.
Everybody creating their own thing.
You make a thing, and it's like you can sing, or you can be so ridiculous they have to pull you off like comedically with the crook, the hook thing, and like whatever, all the things that were happening. And it's not necessarily like a great time in our history, but there were some really comedic things that we can look at and go, oh yeah, like there are things that last forever, like slapstick comedy that kind of came from that time period. And now that Netflix and like the streamers are like having this global, it's like global. And well, what's global? We're not all speaking the same language. Physical comedy is.
Physical comedy.
So when you can write something without dialogue and you can shoot it and you can make anybody in the world laugh, that's fun. Like, what a fun thing to work on. You know, and that's part of why a beautiful picture of somebody doing something interesting in a beautiful place can get a lot of views and then a lot of money and then like build something. I mean, I don't know.
I love it.
I think there is room for everybody who wants to do something creative.
Yeah. You talk about the international language of physical comedy, and immediately I go to my two biggest influences growing up. One was John Ritter.
Me too. Same.
Three's Company.
I studied that show.
Oh!
I would sit and rewind it.
Oh, God,
How did he flip over that couch? How did he do that move? I would study him.
Yeah. A brilliant physical comedian.
Brilliant. So
And then,
funny and so likable.
Oh, a lovely human being,
Yeah.
from what I understand.
Yes.
I mean, I never
I mean,
got
I
to meet him,
don't.
but I know people who were just like, oh, John.
Yeah.
And then Rowan Atkinson.
Yes.
Mr. B.
That's my quick round.
That's a good quick one, Rowan Atkinson. His stuff is I would guess, and maybe I'm a fool for thinking this, but I feel like you could probably take that just about anywhere on the planet, and somebody would find something. Somebody would be able to identify with it, and I love that about what we do.
I just keep thinking of the episode where he's like trying to be a carpenter and sawing through like electrical stuff. I mean, it's some stupid stuff, and I love it. Yes.
The one I think it's part of a Christmas special when he's in church and he's trying to eat a candy.
It's crackling.
And it's just so loud. And
because we can recognize this. We've all been in a situation where we're doing something we shouldn't be, whether it's crackling paper or cracking up. I mean, I have been at funerals and weddings like where I cannot stop laughing.
Right.
And it's so embarrassing. I'm in so much trouble.
So
because it's a defense thing. I think.
Totally is.
And for a lot of us comedians, we started comedy because it's a defensive thing.
Yeah.
It's a way to like slough off something, you know,
Yeah.
or take the attention away from something, or lighten it when there's tension. Because that's all comedy is the release of a tension that was built.
Oh, that's an interesting way of putting it. I'd never thought of it that way.
Yeah.
The release of a tension that is built.
Yeah.
That's very good. That's very good. That really simplifies it in a lot of ways. That the job is to create the tension so that the funny thing can be that much funnier by releasing it.
Yeah. Back in the day, like BC business, like the Greeks, you know, like the early theater stuff. They actually didn't, it was tragedy or comedy.
Right.
Drama was both. It was is a tragedy because people died, or is a comedy because it was like
Because people died.
release attention. So many people. But it's like we have a lot of stuff all around now. A lot of like, shades of that. Because we've got the dramedies. And so now to be an actor is really to understand tone. It's like, is this Nickelodeon and over the top and like, is it slapsticky, or is this like so real that you can't tell that if the actor is like really talking? Like that kind of like grounded depth.
Yeah.
Because again, it's like there's room for everything, but it's like, what do you want to create?
Right.
You know, do you want to create those multiple things? Because again, like Rowan Atkinson or Robin Williams or Jamie Foxx, it's like these people can make us laugh. Richard Pryor, there's something underneath too that can be so raw and emotional and hold us in a drama. Jamie Foxx and Ray, you know, just, and you're like, oh, this is like a guy who's doing like sketch comedy and like this face that you're just like, that's weird.
Well, Richard
funny.
Pryor and Blazing Saddles, the reality was that they were addressing racism by hitting you over the head.
But there were a lot of fart jokes in Blazing Saddles. Oh
God, it's brilliant. You could never make that movie today. You could absolutely never make that movie today, sadly. But yeah,
there's a lot of things. I mean, it's just a shift of a lot of things, and it's like that's art as well as being aware of where we are with things and taking a risk or playing it safe. These are the choices that we're always making,
right?
Especially with art, towing a line or stepping out and saying something, and with your lyrics and your songs, or
right.
You know,
making a statement, commenting on the world at large.
Yeah.
When did you first realize that this was you?
Who?
Right. Yeah, you.
Me?
You. When were you like, oh my God, I love this acting, storytelling, making up voices, playing characters?
It was a tricky thing to, you mean understand like this is what I want to do?
I guess, when did you first really fall in love with it?
Oh, I fell hardcore in a theater and being in a play. A play.
How old are you?
I was in 7th grade, and I auditioned, or wait, was it 8th grade? I auditioned for the high school play, and I was like one of the youngest people to audition, but I only did it because I was like trying to get out of being a criminal, and which I was like sure that was my life. Like I was like going down that road of like my name was Troublemaker. Like I was up to no good, and I was even in that theater because I was like, what kind of like mayhem can I wreak? You know, and it was like audition day, and I was like, what is that? You know, you got to picture me with like a motorcycle jacket and a cigarette and like.
In 7th grade?
I was not that cool, but I was up to no good. That was still true.
Like legit no good?
Legit no good. Like I was headed.
Like not just being a little snot, but.
Well, maybe like a bit of that. I don't know if I was going to murder anybody that day, but I was like, I didn't have a lot of like people in my life pulling me towards something. And I think if you're a kid and you're going into your teenage years, you really need somebody who's a guidepost for you, who's like, hey kid, you got something. You could do this thing. And then if you like the thing that they're saying you could do, the deal is done. Now I've taught for a long time, and whenever I meet a kid, especially they're going into those years, and they're interested in something, like please, 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 please take your teen, your preteen, your middle school kid and let them do whatever it is that they want to do that's, you might not understand it, but like do it with them or let them do it, because there's nothing worse than a kid who has no direction and doesn't know what to do. There's nothing worse. Nothing. I don't think there's anything worse. Maybe a kid like me who's like up to no good and wreaking mayhem.
Yeah.
But I didn't know what auditions were. But there had been a girl at the school that I admired, and I'd been in her writing club that she started, and I saw her audition. She like went on stage and had like a little Samuel French, which I didn't know at the time was what that was, like a little playbook. And she was kind of holding it and like reading some lines and doing a scene up on the stage. And the director or whatever, somebody was judging and sitting, calling next or whatever, like your typical audition. I had no idea what was happening. I was trying to see if anybody had any leftover unchewed gum in their desks. I'm not even joking. I was up to no good looking for gum. And I stumbled into this audition,
And I just thought, and then they were like, "Are you auditioning?" And I was like, "Meh," you know, and then I did, and then I thought, what am I doing?
So you didn't have anything prepared?
No.
You literally just stumbled into the audition.
I stumbled in. I probably tripped on the way and almost broke a tooth. I don't know. You know, I was very awkward. And so I went up on stage and I'd been given the book or whatever. Didn't like go outside and take a few minutes to prepare. I tried to do what that girl had done. I was like, just do what she did. Like, try to do what she did. Same part and everything. And it was auditioning for like I guess we were both auditioning for, it was God's Favorite by Neil Simon.
Oh, interesting.
And we were I think auditioning for a smaller role, Maid, number whatever, couple lines. And I just was like, it's burned into my memory. Because I went up on stage and I did that, and I don't even remember what I did. But I left, and I found out that that girl that I'd been watching got cast in the show. And I did too. And she got the maid. And I got the lead. Like the lead boy, they made it a girl character. Like a really funny character. But I didn't understand comedy, you know. But I got to wear footy pajamas. Because I was like, can I wear footy pajamas? Because I'm playing like a weird, sassy kid. And I was like, I got sass for days. And all through rehearsal, the director, who I don't know what she is or what she does. What's a director? She's yelling at me the whole rehearsal for weeks and months. Speak up! You know, and they'd be in the back of the room. Speak up, I can't hear you. And because I'm like, I don't know what I'm doing. I have no concept of what acting is. Up until this point, I wanted to be Stephen King. Like, that was my whole trajectory was to be a novelist in the woods writing creepy things.
Really?
That was all I wanted to do. And then this play, Neil Simon's God's Favorite, happened to me. And also, it's religion. And everybody wants to talk religion after rehearsal. And I'm just like, I got it up to you with religion. I don't care about religion. Don't talk to me about religion. Because I was in a cult, and I didn't want to talk about God. And it's nobody's business what I believe in. And I didn't want to have these, theater people. It's like, we just sit around and we're talk about, like,
heavy duty, like we started off with.
Like, let's get meta. Let's
Right.
get deep.
Let's
like,
get
we wanna do
super.
that. Well, the teen me was just like, no! And so I'd, like, bail out of these rehearsals after. Like, you're talking about God. I'm out. I'm either snoring or I'm out.
Okay, so
We're gonna get into it now.
all right. So you have made mention of this in times that we've hung out, at your place, at our place, all over the place, and we kind of take time. We share stories from our childhoods and all that sort of thing. You had a pretty unique upbringing.
I did, yes. And part of why theater was so good and glorious to me was it felt like freedom, and the arts they're just such a great place to hang out if you're different or you think about things differently or you want to explore a different world. It's a great way to put your toe into, because a playwright has written a world for you.
Right.
And, even if it's the same world, it's a different family, it's a different kind of person. And so I loved it because I wasn't completely enamored with my own life, which is putting it lightly.
Right. So
It was very religious.
Okay.
And there were a lot of, you can't do this. And I think on top of that, I was a very sick kid. So on top of the religious restrictions, there were like physical restrictions. And most of my life was like, people kept mentioning to me, and I didn't understand it because I'd never seen the film, but The Boy in the Bubble, because it was really like that. There was all these like, you can't.
right.
And
Restrictions.
Restrictions are tough for kids because if the child is one who doesn't like restrictions, which I was, because I like to get into trouble and rebel and all of that, and so when I, joined the circus in New York, known as New York City, which is not an actual circus, because I know people do that and have great fun, but
The rabbit is running around.
yeah,
Sorry, it's
I
very
love the
distracting.
rabbit. New York City was like one of those places where I was just like, I kid in a candy store of like all the things I wanted to try and do
yeah.
and be, and I loved it because you could actually remake yourself instead of being in this tiny town with the same people day after day. And that's the glorious thing about being an actor, is you can just change your identity in a split second.
Yeah.
And be something else as much as you are who you are, if you're at least comfortable with that. And I was pretty comfortable. I knew to a certain extent, like I had a pretty good relationship with myself, which I think is really important for creatives, especially actors, to have.
Yeah.
Because there's so much rejection in this industry.
Oh my God.
And, people say you have to like, you do have to handle it or deal with it or find a way to move past it, or it can be debilitating to put yourself out there again when it's like no, or you just don't hear anything. And from years and years of not hearing anything, I think that's the reason that some of us really enjoy other creative pursuits, is because then we have something to look at. Like, you can write a story and like hold it in front of you, whereas you'd give a performance and nobody says anything, and you gave it like, you went to the depths of your soul and you delivered something that you never even knew you had inside of you in a random room on La Brea.
Right.
And then you walk out and nobody calls you, and you're just like, what? Do I exist?
Right.
Am I a ghost? Am I here? And that's why, like, some of the arts where you draw something and make a painting and there it is. It's like there's meaning. I completely avoided your question. Did you notice?
Okay, so then let me ask you this. How did you said having a relationship with yourself or knowing yourself is really important. And I know that for me, I always felt like a late bloomer. So as a kid, knowing yourself never made any sense to me. How did you have such a great sense of self from an early age?
I'm putting that lens on it now to say I knew myself, but if you had asked me when I was 8, I would have just said I talk to myself and I hear voices, or I have imaginary characters that talk to me and we talk to each other. Because I was often in the woods, like, creating a character out of a lump of grass, and like, I didn't have googly eyes to put on it, but it was real to me, and I could be like, well, what do you think today? I was that kid who was like, well, what are we playing today? Out in the woods by myself.
Making all the voices.
Yeah. Like climbing the tree and just being like, walk. I don't know, I was telling Philip the other day, like, I used to walk for miles to this little creek and find like wild strawberries, like really far away from the house, like all by myself, just hours and hours to just go explore the land. And I'd sit by the creek and I'd sit there and be like, I'd feel like I was supposed to sit there a long time. And I knew it was good for me, but I couldn't sit very long. I was then like grabbing the strawberries and eating them and like, being a kid.
Yeah.
But I wanted to meditate and I wanted to have peace and calm in my world, in my own personal world, because I didn't have a lot of that in my life. So, and I sort of grew up like kind of wild, part feral.
Really?
Yeah.
I would never look at you and think that you grew up part feral.
That's the fun of writing, is like you can express all these things, and it's like there's no, and that's also the joy of voiceover too, is you can be a feral cat, like really go for the like.
What's your feral cat voice?
Like, you can,
But how does your feral cat talk? Have you cataloged the number of voices that you have?
No. That would be fun to do one day. That'd be like a good day's work. Like, this is my job as an actor. Let's see. Tramp from the 1920s, like Scampy Tramp, not like
not like Horbad.
But I could add that too. So that's number. They're all of them. They just.
That's the other
That's
tramp.
the fun of cataloging these.
So it was just being alone and needing to entertain yourself. I'm sure there was a fair amount of self-soothing involved.
Yeah, I think so. And I don't know if it's because we all need this and I like hooked onto it, or I think that's probably it. I don't think there's any. I think we all need more nature, and that was just something that I just, because I grew up in a place where I was on the land, and there was land like was really all that I could see, trees and land. I spent a lot of time like climbing trees, walking through the woods and on the land, because we had enough that I think my parents felt safe enough that it was like, go out and play, and that just meant like not so far that you're climbing through the coal mines, and not so far in this direction that dog, you know, a couple of miles down the road is chewing on your ankles, but like everything kind of in the middle of there, like go to. And so I think nature was like a really big part of my life then and now, and I think living in New York and LA, it's like it got away from that a little bit. So now it's like I really want to be in more green spaces, and traveling, being in Atlanta, you know, and going to the beach and the mountains, whatever part of the world that's in.
Yeah.
Going, it doesn't take long, just a few minutes, and I feel kind of back to myself. Yeah, nature.
Yeah. So for you growing...
I was just going to say that is the answer to your question about knowing yourself, is like, I think we can all connect. I believe we can connect to ourselves when we step into nature.
Oh, yeah.
And sometimes it needs to be more than just like a few minutes to like detox from the pressures that we put on ourselves, and the pressures that other people put on us, and the pressures we feel from staring at a screen all day, or being involved with the competition that we don't want to have but can't help but have with like social media and things like that, especially in an industry where, I mean, I even use social media in aspects of, I just want to kind of put positive things out there.
Yeah.
I don't want to like put a lot of negative things there. And so if other people are doing that, then we're always just seeing what other people want us to do, which is really what I've been doing all my life. I'm like, you know, since I discovered, you know, theater, like not that I do the song or the dance very well, but the song and dance kid who's just like, everything's fine, look over here, like,
right, keep
don't.
applauding. Yeah.
Yeah, and there are a lot of us that are drawn to performance that have that inside of us, which is why we become comedians or dancers or actors, because we want to be seen and we want to be appreciated, and also there's a joy of sharing. But I think it's the first tier of the evolution of, for those of us who have that. I think that's just first tier stuff. Is like at some point it gets stripped away, and you're willing to just say, like, be vulnerable. Like we started off talking about like, it's the parts of ourselves that people tell us to change. You hear that a lot with celebrities. Is like this.
I want to. Forgive me for interrupting you, but I remember pinging on that when you said it earlier. The part of you, or the parts of you that everybody else tells you to change, that's the stuff that we need to blow up. That's the stuff that we need to explore, and it's so
and embrace.
It's so true.
It's so easy to hate aspects of ourselves, and we might not even know it when that's happening. But to me, that's the hardest part of acting sometimes, is really being forced to like look at who you are. And that's why I love voices, because you don't have to look at anything. You just talk into a microphone and you're just like, whoa, 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 whoa. But when you're an on-camera or a theater actor, especially an image on-camera actor, you're forced with like, and then to see how you change if you started very young as an actor, and to see yourself age out of certain categories into different roles, and it's like suddenly, you're not playing this kind of part, you're playing this kind of part, and if it's like, if we can't embrace that and accept that, I think we're just the resistance. It's like anything else. It's like, in yoga, like you have to be letting go to move deeper into it, to move deeper into the pose. There's a bit of letting go. You still have the structure to hold you up, but you release into it to grow.
I think because maybe so many of us come from such wacky backgrounds, whatever that means, and that can mean a whole host of things. I think there's a certain amount of control that many of us feel or want to feel in our work. I know I counsel my students on this a lot, to stop working so hard.
Oh, you said it, that word control. Because I think a lot of us come from a background where we can't control anything. I think many of us end up in the arts when we're coming from a place where things were out of our control. And then, so all you want to do is be able to control it, but you can't.
Right.
I mean, you can't do your best work when you're controlling everything. And I come from improv where the very last thing is controlling what's happening. The very philosophy of improv is like exploration, and we don't know what's going to happen. And yet I would walk out on stage fully prepared, fully planning to control every aspect of where this scene was going to go.
How'd that work out for you?
Not great. Not great. I had a great teacher who called me on it. He did, and I didn't know I was doing it. And it wasn't in the way of like, I wasn't telling people what to do. No, that would be bad improv. No, I was a good improviser. I was coming out and supporting you so good that you didn't have a chance to figure out what you were going to do, because I did it all for you.
Oh, interesting.
I got you. I got you so good that you could do nothing. I got you. That's terrible.
Wow.
It's terrible. And I didn't know I was doing it, because it's also the people pleaser, I think, leads to that in improv. Because then you want, I'm going to be a good partner for you. I got everything. Oh, you have a blank look in your face. Let me fill it with all kinds of bananas and mushrooms and treetops and gnomes. Let's do this. I got this improv scene down. And it's like, it's not fun. Like real fun. I mean, it's wacky.
Right.
I can do wacky. But I'd rather do like joyful, fun, unique, something that's never been done before.
An exchange.
Yeah.
A give and take.
And do it based off of something that you offered, and we make something, because that's the point of improv.
Right.
We're making something that's never been made before in this moment, based on something that an audience suggested, and we're going to honor that instead of railroad it, because I can lay track. But it partly came from having taught for so many years, because you never want to leave a student hanging. You know, you always want them to know that they're held.
Right.
So that they can make a choice and know that nothing that they did was going to be stupid. And you weren't judging it. You really, really, really weren't judging it. And you created a space that no one would be judging it. They were truly safe. And anything that anybody brought in that was not in line with that was like cut out like a tumor. It didn't belong. And you were the person who kept that kind, and they knew you were the person who was going to, if anybody pulled any kind of shenanigan, you were going to call them on it and remove it from the room. That was my job. But I couldn't let go of it when I wasn't teaching anymore. And I had a great teacher who was like, and I was willing to hear him, you know, who saw what I was doing, and then also had the discussion in front of the whole class, you know, in a way that was actually really beautiful. And
so it was edifying to you and edifying to everybody in the room.
Yeah, Craig Krakowski at
He's an LA guy. Yeah.
Yeah, fantastic teacher. And what he did at the end of it was more advanced level, but at the end of that class, you sat down and you know the hot seat, you know, as an actor. And I was resistant to that, because I know what that hot seat is, where you're on stage and everybody else is in the audience looking and whatever. But he did it in this way. It's like you sit in the hot seat, and he had every single person in the room that you'd been in class with for like whatever the program was. Like the time it was like 12 weeks or whatever. Every single person in that room told you something that they liked about the way that you worked. So, you know, they'd say things like, I love all the characters that you do, or I love how you, would, whatever. They'd give you a compliment, love how you yes-anded everything, and in improv speak. And you just sort of feel like, oh, so good. Like, this is really nice. And then he would do a shift where he'd kind of ask questions about, like, I don't know how he did it, but he basically, this was the magic of his teaching style, would basically say, like, if there was something that you could fix, or did you notice that? And you kind of, he's not shaming you in any way, and I think that's really important as a teacher, not to shame, and it's also important as a performer, a human, to recognize when somebody's trying to do it to you.
Yeah.
Because you gotta cut that stuff out.
Yeah.
It's like, it's not for you, it's not for anybody, it does nobody any good.
Right.
Shame has no place.
It's a giant bucket of water on a creative fire.
Yeah, and there is a scientist that Brene Brown mentions. I don't remember his name, but she mentions him. He did a study that children who were criticized of their art, when you come along like that painting, I don't like that, or the way you dance, or the way you do anything, children store it as trauma.
No way.
It's serious stuff. It's like, it's not just a comment. People live with this stuff for the rest of their lives. They don't pick up a pencil. They don't try to act. They don't try to sing. Drawing and singing are like some of the most... It's so easy to be like, oh, doesn't look like a turtle, or you sound like a turtle. I wasn't trying to sing like a turtle. And then you're just like, you know, so it's like, it stores trauma.
How interesting.
You know?
Specifically when their creative expression is critiqued. Interesting. That's such a core thing for us, isn't it? I've known so many people who are like, "Oh, I'm not creative." I'm like, I don't believe that one bit. Like, maybe your creativity is with numbers.
Somebody told them somewhere along the way, or they got the idea somehow. But we're all creative because we were all created.
It sounds really simplistic, but I agree with you entirely. Cults aside, you know, I mean, I've always had this kind of philosophy that there is something greater than us out there. Call it collective love or collective consciousness or whatever you want to call it. It doesn't really matter to me. I'm going to call it God, whatever that works for you or not, you know. But that whatever we do is actually already created. The next voice that you come up with and the puppet that matches, and you and Philip creating some crazy lunatic short film that's brilliant, is already created, and that we have to just get quiet enough to trust ourselves and listen to it and manifest it the way it's supposed to come out. I don't know that there's any real religious basis for that thought, but it's just this. I have this theory that we are created in the image of something divine, something beautiful, something spectacular. And that the art of creation is divine in and of itself. And so when somebody critiques that which is divine in you, when somebody shames that which is divine in you, how could it not be traumatic?
There's a few authors that I've been reading, this sort of idea has come up recently about, because I do a lot of different things, and it's like I don't know that that's ever going to stop, but there's this idea that if you have the inclination to be doing something, or you have this idea and you really want to do this thing, like you want to be a great actor, you want to play some kind of role, or you want to write something, create whatever you want to do, whatever it is your goal is, that you don't have that just randomly. You have that because it's out there for you. You're just getting to the point where you can make that happen.
Right.
Or be in a place where you can relax enough to believe that it will, which is where I'm sitting right now.
Right.
In this very moment of time is trying to just, I hustled a lot in New York City. I hustled a lot in Los Angeles. I just did a lot of trying. And some of the best and most amazing things that I've had in my career have happened because of a completely different route than what I was trying to do. Much like walking into the scenes in that class and trying to cover all the bases and make everybody else feel safe. when I was planning. I was planning stuff seconds before I walked out on stage, but I wasn't walking out on stage with blank, open, you and I are going to create something together. In that split second before I took a step on stage, I had some flash of something, and I took that flash and I made it be yours, not ours. I made it a thing, you know, because I don't think I could be, I also don't think I could be at the time uncomfortable with silence. And I'm much less afraid of that. Maybe it's just the past couple of years, but it's okay to have silence.
I think it's absolutely necessary as an actor to have silence. If we can't have true silence, then we're constantly moving in our work, we're internally moving in our work. The ability to just sit in something, whether that's the pain of your character or getting rid of the day that preceded where you are right now. I think sitting in silence is something that we are missing as a culture. I love this movement towards mindfulness and meditation and that sort of thing, because it's absolutely imperative that we reconnect with that.
Yeah.
Says the guy who hasn't meditated during the pandemic, I think, at all.
Yeah, it is definitely, there is definitely a profound difference when I drop that out of my life, for sure. And when I teach with my book, when I teach the rules of the philosophies of improv, one of the rules is be present. And so I do a really quick little breathing exercise, and every single time I do it, and it's really simple, we can just do it. It's just everybody can do it.
Yeah, okay.
It's really simple, no big deal. Just take a breath in and I'll count. We'll just do like a 4 breath in.
Okay.
1, 2, 3, 4. Hold. And out. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And another breath in.
In for 4, hold for 4, out for 6.
I like to do one where we do a hold and then we do the out longer. So let's do one more round of that.
Okay.
So in for 4, hold, and out for 6. And when we repeat that, like it's like we're building on top of it, but it's called box breathing. It's like Navy SEALs do this to be present. What we're doing is like we're pulling in some of that air, we're holding, and then we're pushing out a little air, a little extra air. So we're getting rid of some of the toxicity, and we're getting rid of a little bit extra by doing a little bit longer exhale. And it's one of my favorite ones to do. I'll do it on the way to an audition. And I just did an audition, or a job. I was running, I was very concerned I was going to be late for it, and because there was traffic that I didn't anticipate for. And it turns out that I had just had my app on avoid highways, but I made it no problem. But I was like praying the whole time, which I don't always do, but I really didn't want to be late for a Disney job, you know. So it's like, you work a long time to get these opportunities. I was like, I'm not going to be late. So I did this box breathing the whole way there, and just it's going to be fine, it's going to be fine.
Wow.
And it was awesome. This session was one of the best. It was super fun. It was easy breezy. I was early. They weren't even, it was so great.
Wow.
And I turned that around from when I left my house going, I should have left, just everything constricts.
Yeah,
I should have left 20 minutes ago. What was I thinking? And Jorjeana, and the abuse that we put ourselves through, what were you knew better than this. You never have a job, and now you have a job. Look what you've done. And we have to, in the moment, we have to turn that around, because I can't control if there's really bad traffic. I can't control, I mean, of course I could have fixed my app and like done that, but I can't control like in that situation, or if there had been an accident or whatever. I can't, the only thing I can control is letting go of control and this moment, which is my breath and my ability to drive this car and get there safely. Because being a maniac isn't going to help anybody, stressing out about it, getting everything tense, like how is that going to help anything when I get there to do the session, much less get there alive. And these are things that we, you know, we think, oh yeah, if I could just get a job, and it's like, no, it doesn't stop.
Right.
It never stops.
Right.
You are always living with yourself. We do not leave who we are behind because we got a job. Do we want to be that person on set that somebody's sending a tape in, they screamed at everybody and threw a tantrum and we're just horrible to work with? Do we want to be that person? Because that's not that person just on set. That's that person 24 hours a day with every person in their life. I don't want to be that person.
No.
But I can feel myself some days living that life.
Right.
Because this is a high stakes game, to be wanting to have a role in a Netflix series.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, but it doesn't have to be.
Right.
It can just be a thing that we get to do while we're being a good human being.
Right. Right. I find it interesting too that in your childhood where you had so little control, you then found acting or performance or the arts where you thought you could finally have control, and the great lesson is, nope, you don't get to control that either, and you're actually better off by not controlling it.
It comes back to those things that we're trying to like hide or not have them be parts of ourselves. Just embrace. People don't really expect it, but you kind of try to control things.
So what did that mean for you, those things that to embrace, those things that everybody was telling you to stop? Was that the voices? Was that the commitment to making believe?
That's a really good question. I think it's just like everything about the way that we look, you know? Like, and the pressures are different for a woman to be a certain weight to be on camera, and the camera adds weight, and so you see that. And so I think it's about like just embracing like, no, I love all of this. Like, all of this has to work or I won't be alive. So like, you know, loving yourself and your body and the way that you look. Because I already did the route of hated my voice. Hated the way I sounded. But guess what? Don't eat cheese and you can sound better. So I actually changed the way I sound, and now when I hear recordings of myself, I don't hate the way my voice sounds the way that I did when I did one of those little Fisher-Price recorders when I was a kid.
Yeah.
I was stunned. I was like, that's what I sound like? Which, of course, is what I sounded like.
Right.
But I was like, oh.
What did cheese do for you?
Cheese makes my nose drip, and then I get really nasally.
Okay.
So I think it starts to clog up the sinuses.
Okay.
And acupuncture had been recommended to me for most of my life because I was very sick as a kid, and asthma, and it kept coming up. But I don't think where I grew up there were any it was such an idea outside the box that it wasn't even on the table. It was like, well, I don't know.
What?
But then being in Los Angeles, I was like, let me give this a shot. And I went to one of the acupuncture schools where it was like $20. And that was my first experience. Was I went to one of the schools in a great school in Santa Monica. I paid them $20. And then that heat lamp. Oh, so nice. And so I love acupuncture, but not just because it's a nice experience and I really don't mind the needle. Like, I don't really think about the needles a lot of the time. It changed my sound because I started going to somebody who's really good at acupuncture, like kind of moved up through, like going to the school was too far of a drive. And I found somebody and she said, oh, let me do your sinus points. And I was like, well, I didn't even know that was a thing, but okay. And then she was the one who was like, are you eating dairy? And I was like, yeah. She's like, well, how about you just stop that and see what happens? And so between stopping that and her doing my sinus points, and now, Josh, I was getting messages from producers who were like, you sound really nasally. Are you okay? Like, you have a cold?
Oh, really?
Yeah, multiple times. I was starting to do a lot of voiceover, a lot of audiobooks, and they were writing me and saying, like, this is, and it was affecting, like, how much work I was getting.
This is already after you started working consistently.
Because I was like, I'd go after stuff when I want it. It's
right.
like, I'm like...
No, you go after it.
I do a game plan, a business plan. Like, I did a business plan on my voiceover career. Like, a full-on 5-segment business plan.
Really?
Mm-hmm. And then I started getting all this work, but then there was this pushback. But yeah, I was like, I figure out, like, what are the ways... Put it together like it's a little puzzle piece.
Did you do like a SWOT analysis?
What's a SWOT analysis?
Strengths, weaknesses,
yes.
Yes. And the O's
yes.
and the T's.
I did all kinds of comparisons. Who
really?
are the people at the top of their game doing this? What do they have? Why do they have? Like, why do you think they have the position that they're in? Why are they in that position? Can you, what can you do that would be comparable of that? I mean, you're basically doing this plan because you're going to take it to a bank and they're going to give you $500,000 to launch your business or whatever it is.
right.
Or whatever.
Right.
I'm just doing it to have a plan. It was one of the key things that I did to become a working actor.
That is fascinating. I've never heard of anybody doing
really?
that. Yeah. Yeah, that... I mean...
I was burnt out on teaching. I love teaching. I love it. But not every day. It wasn't for me. I couldn't do it every day because not a lot of people thank teachers until they're like they win an award or they have a realization like, oh, it was a teacher who. Because I do the same thing. It's like when my book came out in the acknowledgments, I acknowledged the director that I mentioned earlier who changed my life, and I acknowledged the friend who I watched. She changed my life, and my other friend is like. People have a really big impact on you, and we don't always recognize it in the moment, and sometimes it takes decades.
Yeah.
That's
really cool. That's really cool to remember those folks because I think it's so easy to forget those folks. And I can name you 2 teachers who had a huge impact on me.
In school?
Yeah, drama and music. Like the 2 most impactful teachers. And I had lots of great teachers, but yeah. That's very true.
Mm-hmm.
That's very true. But no, I've never heard of anybody doing a business plan for something as speculative as this, as VO or commercials or TV or film, like that. Yeah. What a unique approach.
Hard thing about it because you said speculative. You don't go to engineering school and you don't go, even if you spend and you get into a program like a conservatory program, you spend $100,000 that you don't have and you do all of these things. It doesn't mean anybody ever sees you and you could be the best actor. You actually could be the best actor. It's not good enough. It's a big. The arts are all like a big mesh of, we've all said it. It's luck and it's perseverance and it's talent, but it's mostly luck and it's mostly perseverance. Luck and perseverance, swirling.
Yeah. And
what can you do about it? It's like, you can be a business person about it. If you can wrap your mind around that, because they don't teach that in the conservatory programs.
They don't teach that anywhere. I mean, other than like, oh, you need headshots. Oh, you need a good reel. Like the business of doing the work. But coming at it...
What do you do with those headshots when you've got them?
Well, yeah, you send them out.
Do you like them?
Right.
Because if you don't, you will never send them out.
Right.
And you will never have the confidence with them. It's the same with the voiceover demo reel and an acting demo reel.
Right.
If your materials, if you don't look at them and go, oh, Like, I think you should have that reaction. Be
Right.
like, oh. Or like, oh. Like, just something where it's a pleasant thing.
Yeah.
If you look at them and you go, ooh, like, this is a problem.
Right.
Even if you spent $5,000 on it, it's a problem.
Yeah. Wow. Okay, so then taking the business plan approach.
Oh yeah, okay, good. I
Okay.
wanted to talk a little bit more
Yeah,
about
good.
that.
No, I want you to, because I love it. I've written a couple business plans, and I've never thought of writing a business plan for my own career. So, what I love about a business plan is that it really ought to force you to make some pretty tough decisions about how and where you're going to run your business and all that sort of thing. So, what sort of tough decisions came from you setting up, doing a business plan for your career?
So, I had a little conversation with myself, like I like to. I was like, Jorjeana, if you threw all of your energy, everything that you have, into voiceover, like, I bet you could do it. Like, everything. And I had just quit my teaching job to do a comedy show that had just got canceled. So I lost my unemployment. I lost the comedy revenue. I had just had a couple of horrific experiences as a stand-up comedian on the road.
Oh.
And it was not a good time. And the IRS was chasing me down. Because, like I said, wreaking mayhem.
Yeah.
And I was like at a low place because I was I think $60,000 in debt.
Mm-hmm.
So the government's chasing me down, doing the old garnishing the wages threat, and I don't have unemployment now because the unemployment was based on me having that job, which I lost, and I had quit my job teaching. It was like, can I just stress that, like, and the thing is, this is the thing I realize now, that was a privilege. That was a privilege to be in that position, to even have those things fall apart.
Mm.
Like, that I'd worked so hard controlling every little bit to have those things.
Yeah.
And I can see that now, but at the time, it was like, pull your hair out, quit acting and move to the woods to be Stephen King was my backup plan. But now I'm an adult wanting to be Stephen King, and there's already Stephen King.
Mm.
So what am I going to do? So, like, I had that conversation, and that was the question, was like, if you threw everything into this, like, I think you could do it. So what I gave up was, like, money going towards anything but voiceover, tearing out my clothes from a closet and gathering egg crates that I'd been saving up to take back to the farmer's market, because where I'm from, we recycle everything.
Mm-hmm.
And tacking those egg crates on the wall of the closet to create an isolation booth. And, you know, all of the business stuff of, like, dealing with letting my agents know, like, I'm going renegade, like, you know, I'm gonna go on Craigslist, and I'm gonna do somebody's answering machine for $50, their message for $50, and I'm gonna pocket that cash, and it's gonna pay for my macaroni and cheese, like, everything. It worked. It worked. It totally worked. I threw it all into it, and it all came back. It happened, but I did the business plan.
Okay. How did this work? You wrote a business. How the hell did this business plan work? Like, it came all together.
So I just Googled business plan. You know, like
Like you didn't read some book. You
No.
didn't, like, go to a study
No.
business. You didn't get okay.
No, the first version of this, because later on I did start doing, because I realized, like, this is, like, something that seems to work in my universe, because I've coached and I've worked with a lot of different actors and a lot of different performers about getting their careers going, and what I like to say is, like, the rules and the things that work for me aren't necessarily going to work for you, what we want to find are the things that work in your world. Like, how do you get things? How do you book jobs? How do they come to you? Because for me, they're really they're mostly unusual circumstances, or it's for some other reason. Like it hasn't always been the normal path for me. Like I've gotten gigs because the kids hired me. Like I've been in rooms multiple times as has happened. Like children have been the person who made the hiring decision and been like her.
Really?
Now, they would be a comedy or a kid's project, so it makes sense.
Sure.
But yes, I've been told multiple times, like, oh, we had kids in the room specifically to help with this, and they chose you. You know, so it's like unusual things that have that have happened. So part of the business plan was like figuring out the things that worked for me and kind of following my own oddball path while putting things into something that works in the business world, which is like statistics and analyzing how much you are doing of something. So it was like I was sending a lot of emails. I had really good materials that I felt confident with that I would, you know, I'd look at my business plan and it became like this kind of thing that you don't just write it and you're done with it. Like this is the sort of menu function for you to move forward with what you want to do or accomplish. So I mean, the business plan had the different aspects to it, the different parts. You know, because I Googled it and like also things like simple business plan, and I took a bunch of my findings and the ones that kind of communicated to me with some sense of ease without not a ton of like jargon. And it was like, well, you want to have these different aspects in your business plan. You want to assess your situation. You want to also be setting goals for where you see yourself in the future, the kind of things that you want to have, and everything in between. And you're going to be looking at your competitors. So it's like, well, who in the voiceover industry has the kind of jobs that you'd like to have? Or if you're going to do a business plan for your acting career, who are the people that are booking those roles? Well, who are the directors that are hiring those people? Who's making the kind of movies that you want to make? Do your materials reflect that? You start thinking about it as this holistic thing. Well, is Gus Van Sant or Darren Aronofsky or Greta Gerwig or Emerald Fennell, are any of them going to look at your material and be like, this girl, this guy? Like, is there something there that might intrigue them in some way? And I hate for us actors to have to be thinking about more and more things, but it does give us a little bit more control to think about, well, I'm not just going to do any demo. I'm not just going to put any old footage on my demo reel. Why don't I have some footage that looks like it came out of a really kickin' film? The kind of thing I want to be in, so that I can enjoy making it as well as trying to get more like it. Because there's also the belief, if you want to have a certain kind of feeling, you should create it now so that it'll come to you.
Yeah.
So act the way you want to be an actor. Act in those roles for yourself. I've always been that way, though. Solo show, stand up,
Right.
writing a play for myself, 24-hour plays, improv, making characters on stage, renting a theater, buying my own costumes, hiring a director. I did that just to, I don't know,
Just to give yourself an opportunity to work.
yes, but also, like, when I get work, so many times I'm like, it's not what I would have created for myself. I'm appreciative that I booked a job, but also when you have when you are the kind of person who wants to tell a kind of story or live a kind of character in a kind of story, you have to just go do that.
Well, I think
That's what Issa Rae was talking about in her master class, and I love that. I love that. It's like, you can make that.
Well,
and you can do it at any level.
And it makes you a more complete storyteller, too, rather than just give me the job, I'll bring the character to life. No. I want to create this character. I want to tell the storyline. I want to tell the plot. I want to give all the... Like, you become the overseer of this story.
Yeah.
And it just... I think it broadens our perspectives, especially from an acting perspective, when you can write something and see what somebody else does to it. And go, oh, that's really interesting. Wow, look at that. Yeah, I want more of that. It makes you know what I mean?
Yeah, it could also be in your business plan, too. it's like creating your own thing should be in every actor's business plan at this point, because there's so much precedent for it. Phoebe Waller-Bridge, this screener that you guys have here, is based on a solo show. I'm forgetting the name of it. Tick Tick Boom.
Oh, right.
So
that's all I've been hearing about lately.
okay, so these things came from solo shows. Chaz Palminteri's, like, there's a long history of a person, a performer, making their own thing that, and I think it's partly because it's their thing, and nobody's messing with it. It's like, maybe they've worked with one director, maybe they've worked with a dramaturg, probably not. I didn't. I worked with directors, and they'd sort of push and meld, but it's you, it's your thing. And sometimes I think that there's a real value of just an artist putting their thing out in the world without getting a ton of notes on something.
Yes.
Not that you can't make something better with lots of notes in the room, because I've been a part of that too.
Right.
And it's glorious, especially when the people like get along and it works well and you make something that's really wonderful. But it also can be the opposite, and you can also not be a self-starter and not want it. Like, me doing a solo show might just be like somebody is out there just like, oh, what a terrible idea. Nobody would. I can't.
Well, there's always going to be that person, though.
And it's not for them. They need to go. Write a script, show it to their dentist, and get $2 million in funding, and then go make that movie. Or they need to take their iPhone into a closet and record their own podcast that's intriguing for not a penny, and figure out how to get it on all the platforms. And then, because these podcasts are being made into tons of series. Julia Roberts, as soon as she shifted over and did Homecoming, I was like, game on. Like, the audio drama is like, this is happening. And it'd been in the rumor mill of a couple of people, Writers Guild friends and people that I knew had been suggesting it, like, this is the thing. And years later, it's like, it's still the thing.
It's still the thing.
It's even more, there's like certain trends that are like, pay attention if it's something that you think you could pull off. I say this to myself, pay attention.
Yeah, absolutely. So I was just in Utah, and I was visiting a screenwriter friend of mine, and one of his best buddies. They're both into cars. Todd's a screenwriter. Paul went to very prestigious design school in Southern California, right? Pasadena or Cal something. Anyway, he went for automotive design. Oh. They both love cars, right? Well, 12 years ago, 10 years ago, 11 years ago, they started a podcast just talking about cars. And then they put it on YouTube. YouTube was only 2 years old at the time. They've now turned that into a show that is on Velocity Network. It's called Everyday Driver. And it's for people who love to drive. And it's not about like, oh, we're going to drive the Ferrari, we're going to drive the Lamborghini. No, everyday driver. These are cars that we can afford. Let's make them fun to drive. So they've taken this thing that they did for free. It's that old saying in business, do what you love and the money will follow, right? Do what you love. Love it so much that you oh God, I'm screwing it up already. And then do it so well that somebody will pay you to do it.
There's this Japanese philosophy called Ikigai, and it's where those circles intersect.
Yeah.
And it's like the thing that people will pay you for, the thing that you can do well, and the thing that you love. And that section right in the middle, what is that? I know what that is for me. Does everybody know that?
What is it for you?
Oh, it's like making characters and like being a character, writing characters.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's like, whether that's writing or performing, that's it. That's my zone. There's like people.
That's your sweet spot.
Yeah, it's the thing that it's like, you don't have to pay me. Like, I would do that anyway.
Right.
But like, people do. So thank goodness, because that helps.
Right. Yeah.
We know it's like so many years of struggling, and you think if you just keep pushing on these kind of doors, and there's that, I think a lot about that saying of, crazy as just doing the same thing over and over and expecting different results. And acting a lot has felt like that for me. And it's like, I've just been acting and I've been wanting this, and it keeps coming from over here. Well, I can't say that's bad. That's great. I mean, that's great.
Right.
But I think this happens to people who get cast in a certain light, and they never wanted that. You know, we've often talked about Leslie Nielsen. Is it Neeson or Nielsen?
Nielsen.
Nielsen, thank you. So, you know, Philip had said that he was wanted to be or was a dramatic actor.
Oh yeah.
I mean, those movies are so... You can't think about Airplane and not laugh. He's so great.
He's so good.
But there might have been a version of him. I mean, who knows? I mean, I would certainly hope he had fun with that. But isn't it interesting to learn, like, oh, serious actor?
Oh yeah.
You know, and that happens a lot with the Brits too.
Yeah.
Sometimes they get to do everything. They get to do everything.
Don't they?
Don't they?
Oi, you get to do everything, don't you?
Even accents we're not allowed. Because they're
Accents.
terrible.
Terrible.
Stop it.
Stop right now.
You're embarrassing yourself.
In it.
Aren't ya?
In it. Aren't you? Don't you?
In it.
In it. We're those people. And then your mates get to the Scot. Right? I don't think I can do a Welsh accent.
Ooh.
I don't even know what a Welsh accent would
You
be.
know. French fries.
No, yeah. I don't know. Okay, so talk to me about this book. So, I know, everybody's punchy right
Yeah,
now.
it's loopy.
A wee bit loopy.
A wee bit.
A bit. This book, Improv for
Writers.
Writers.
Mm-hmm.
That's right, because I got it next to my bed.
Ooh.
Yes.
Finding anything good in there?
When I remember to read, yes.
That's not homework.
Yes.
I think it's one of those things, it's like, it's there when it's time to play, and maybe there's a part of you that's like, no, it's not. Yes, it is.
Yeah.
And that's what the book is for. It's a chance for people to take the freedom and rules of improv and use it when there's part of them stopping them from writing words. So I really wrote it for actors who maybe don't feel like there's something in their way of like telling their story, writing their solo show, writing their stand-up act, writing their movie, writing their pilot, writing their web series, writing the blah 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 blah. That's who it's for, and it's also for maybe people in animation who want to write their own show, or they draw, but it's not writing is something that's like wouldn't necessarily know where to begin, or anybody who's like there's something in the way.
Yeah.
Because improv by these games bypass whatever that is, and there's nothing in the way. You just set a timer and you write, and it's awesome.
Really?
Yeah.
And it's just games.
Yep.
It unlocks, unblocks, loosens up, relaxes, allows the flow.
Set the timer for 3 minutes, and write about an imaginary place on page whatever in the book, or you know that you want to write a Western. Set the timer for 3 minutes and write the setting. What does it look like? Close your eyes, open them, don't stop writing. It's just full of stuff like that. It's like, set the timer for 10 minutes and we're going to play this improv game. And, be the villain, write a letter to their mother. I love that one. I came up with that one I was doing a Zoom event. It's not in the book, but I was doing a Zoom event on Mother's Day, and none of us had realized it was going to be Mother's Day. I was like, you know what? In honor of that, let's do a game. And a lot of people get concerned about their villains being one-dimensional in a movie or in a book. Just mustache twirling, like, I'm gonna get you. Well, villains are people too, and they aren't villains to themselves. We know that as actors playing a villain. We're just people trying to live our life, and maybe things have happened, but we want something different. We're a real human. We're real. And if we can approach it that way, same thing as in writing. So the exercises, we set the timer for 3-4 minutes. Dear mom, dear mumsy, dear mama, whatever it is, and let that character write. And they could lie if they're that kind of person who would lie to their mother. There's no wrong answers.
Oh, so it's the villain writing to their own mother.
Mm-hmm.
Uh-huh.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah.
Justifying their behavior or just anything?
I don't know. I mean, if you're in a script where that would be appropriate and that's what you want to come at, you could do it any which way. That's the cool thing about improv, is it's completely adaptable. You know, it could be an apology letter. It could be, you know, I'm pretending everything's okay letter.
Right.
The villain knows, and you don't know until you set the timer and become the character at your desk or at your chair or wherever you are. The truth will come out in the moment.
I love that because what it's reliant upon is giving up, letting go.
Mm-hmm.
And I love that you tell people, in essence, trust what you see in your head.
Mm-hmm. That's one of the rules of improv is trust. But we don't always remember to do that.
Right.
It's not always that easy. And especially when we're alone in the room coming up with words, we just battle ourselves all day. We don't need to.
Right.
It's acting.
Well,
and really great writers are already doing this. Some of them
right.
already recognize it's like they already know they become somebody else at their desk and they're willing to go with it.
Right.
And others don't, you know.
That willingness to play, I think that's key.
It is.
That's key.
It is.
If we can't play, then what are we doing? There's a reason it's called a screenplay, a stage play. You know, I remember watching Whose Line Is It Anyway? And they would start off with the kind of the opening thing, and then would say, all right, let's play. And it was like, let's play, but wait a minute, you guys are all working actors, working comedians, this is very important stuff, and you're working, and you're professionals, and what do you mean play? And I was like, oh, fuck. Play.
Right.
Oh my God, play. All we have to do is play.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's really freeing.
Yeah.
Because I know for so many people, and my left leg is falling asleep, so I'm going to change my position. For so many people, it is all about doing it right.
There is no right. There is no perfect, right?
I could kiss you right now. There is no right.
There is no right. And the play thing, it's really easy to forget that. So I think everybody can give themselves a break if they've just realized, like, oh, it's like, it's so easy to forget it because especially when you land, like, a gig that you really want, we put all this pressure on ourselves. Like I was talking about, I was just trying to get somewhere on time or, you know, we put a lot of pressure on ourselves even when we do get it, even if we don't. When we don't, when we're auditioning, it's even worse. It's like, this has got to be the thing. This is my big chance. And the pressure is, I don't know, sometimes pressure can be really good, but I think the pressure should just be to, like, play and have a really good time and let loose.
Yeah.
You know, when stand-up comedians take the stage, the audience loves it. They come alive when the comedian is alive, and even if they make a mistake and they're just sort of like present, but also like, guys, I totally messed up that joke. I was supposed to say, you know what, it doesn't matter. We're moving on. And they're just like, they're with them.
Yeah.
It's like the comedian can do no wrong.
Right.
But when you have a comedian who takes the stage, it is just sort of like, okay, I have a set list and I'm going to scroll through it. I'm going to try to be perfect, and the laugh has got to come here, and it's got to. We've all been there. It's like somebody's in the audience and you want it to go right, and it's just like there's no perfect, because there's a give and take either with your scene partner or with an audience, and
if you have that rigid need, you can't flow.
Yeah, there was something that I'd read about. Flexibility being really important, like in life, like maintaining your flexibility. And when you compare it to a branch, the branch can bend in the wind, and it can be flexible and survive the weather. But if that branch gets really hard and brittle, and it's no longer bending and moving with the wind and the elements, it snaps off. And that's what we are. Ready to snap at any moment.
I feel that. I so feel that right now. No.
But if we can just remind ourselves, like, it's all about play and let go and have fun, and really, like, make our best attempt, because that's all we can do. But our best attempt to just see, explore, adventure, like when we were children.
Right.
We didn't think about consequences of things.
We just did.
We just did. We just were. We were.
Yeah.
We were the princess or the dragon or the, the tomato flying through the air. We were the thing.
Mm-hmm. And we agreed on it, and that's why things were so. That's why we have these shared experiences. Cops and robbers, good guys, bad guys, whatever that might be. Adventurers. I played a lot in the woods as a kid too.
Mm-hmm.
So for me, it was, first thing, I have to have my prop. I have to have my stick.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Gotta have a stick.
Gotta have a stick. You can do so much with a stick.
A stick, dude.
Poke,
javelin, sword, arrow, cane, walking stick through the woods, bashing blackberry bushes,
knocking some fruit off a tree.
There you go. There you go. My sisters would give me a hard time. They were like, "Oh my God, Josh, you have to find a stick. You gotta find a stick. Did you get your stick, Josh?" I'm like, "Yeah." Shut the fuck up. I got my stick. I'm 5 years old. I get a stick. There's something dead on the beach and I want to poke it.
Just take me right back to poking it with a stick.
But yeah, we all agreed, and it was such a great shared experience. And remember when there was home base?
Yes.
It's like, oh, got to home base. Always gets to home base. Well, home base is the couch. We've just agreed that those are the rules. They're not really the rules, but are they the rules? Well, they're the rules. I'm going to sit here and I'm going to wait till you get off home base and I'm going to tag you or I'm going to tag the shit out of you. But that's what was so fun about it. We were so in it. We didn't question anything.
Games. It's like natural. That's, I think, why a lot of us love improv, because they're games.
Yeah.
And acting can be a bit of a game if we let it.
It needs to be.
Mm-hmm.
I think for it to have that visceral vibrancy,
Mm-hmm.
that magic. That's what we're all looking for.
Yeah.
And there has to be an element of a game. There has to be an element of, what are you going to do? Yeah, I'm ready. Let's go.
We love watching actors who are unpredictable. It's so interesting.
Right.
And you see even, sometimes watching people's early work can be really interesting too, before they were somebody and they were somebody, but a household name, and seeing some of the risks they were taking that got them to that point.
Yeah.
And maybe whether they played it safe from that point on or not.
Mm-hmm.
Because that can happen to us too. You start to accomplish some of these things and get a little safe.
Comfortable.
A little comfortable.
Yeah.
A little comfortable. And that is no good.
No good. I think, what's going to happen?
Mm-hmm.
What's going to happen here when we over-prepare, when we plan it out?
That play that I was talking about, it was a different play, but it was in high school. I was in this play, and there was a kid who was he was really the class clown, and I did my best to keep up with him. And one year he tried out for the school play, and we were opposite, leads, and he would, in front of the whole school, we're doing a big production, it's the play of the year kind of thing. We've been working on it for months. And he'd be doing his big speech, walking across the stage, and there was a group of us sitting on a couch like this, just letting him do, listening to him in our characters as he does his speech. And he'd say his thing, and one of us would say something, and while we were talking, he'd turn away from the audience, and he'd be like, he'd make the most weird, he'd make these faces and do these things.
Yeah.
And he just he was brutal with how awfully funny he was. It was the most painful but also amazing experience on stage of my life.
Really?
A torturous class clown knowing he was funny and could get us in front of hundreds of people. Your peers and your parents and everybody at the school, and he's making and we were just please, and you can't do a thing.
Right.
You can't do a thing. You gotta stay in character. So you're like this. Frozen in this awfulness.
Totally
Your
aware.
whole body is
Right on the edge.
Yeah, the edge.
Yeah.
The edge of acting. And that's what really great actors, comedians can do. They can be awfully funny.
Awfully funny.
But I've never forgotten that. It's one of the best experiences ever.
So that was like what? You were in high school, so
Totally
that was like 5 years
illegal.
ago?
Yes.
Like, you're still talking about it. It's amazing.
I think going back to some of those things of like, I worked with a coach and I was like, well, what were the things that you loved reading and watching? And I realized how much they played into me wanting to be an actor. The movies that I saw when I was a kid and these moments that I'm speaking of, they're very important for me to return to because it's easy to forget why we got in this, especially if we're in it a little bit, which many of us have been.
Yeah.
When you've been a professional, a little bit is relative. Like even it can get stale pretty quickly, no matter what. So I think looking back to those things of like, well, what brought you joy in the beginning? And those were very joyful. They were the best part of my life as a kid. The absolute, undeniable, shape your life best stuff.
Really?
Even if it was torture and I thought I was going to pee my pants. Yeah.
Did you end up paying your
No.
pants? Okay,
No.
good.
But I did always have a thing before I went on stage. It was like, you're on in I gotta go to the bathroom.
Oh, me too. Me too.
It's like, this is not going to work.
Yeah. Like a minute, and I'm like,
I can make it.
I gotta pee. Oh, God, I have to pee. What is it? Did I just gulp a 32-ounce Gatorade? And then now I have 30 seconds? Okay, I'm ready to take a nap. That happens to me, too. I'm always ready to take a nap. I'm like, I get so tired before I go on stage, and I'm like, oh, fuck, all right.
There was a famous theater actor. She had a 5-gallon bucket on the side of the wings. I'm trying to remember. I'm going to have to find out which one that was. Yes.
The Lunts.
Might have been Lorette Taylor. Oh, I don't want to get that wrong though. But of that time.
That's pretty funny. Let me ask you about stand-up. I want to ask you about stand-up because stand-up has always kind of terrified me.
Yeah, me too.
Right?
Yeah.
That to me, stand-up is like the ultimate free market capitalism of art, because it's you've written it, so you've come up with it, right? Most cases, yeah. Right? You've honed it well enough, maybe not well enough. The audience will tell us, and you're up there delivering it. That's a lot, because it's such a. Is it the kind of thing you can teach?
Well, everything is wrapped up in one of the things that you said, like sort of a third of the way into that, which was the audience will tell us. And that's why I love it. I love it because you can't there's no defending anything. If it didn't work, it didn't work. There's no blame. It's like, in a split second. And that's the thing is like getting notes as a writer about scripts and things like that. It's like, well, okay, so that's your opinion, but if we had this on its feet, we would know. Your opinion would be what it is. We would know because the audience would tell us, and especially audiences over time in different places. One audience here or there, you can sometimes be like, oh, they were all wasted. They were all from another country and didn't speak English. They were all not with, they hate it. Whatever it is, one audience, okay. But when you're doing a lot of shows in the same, you sort of figure out over time, the audience will tell you immediately whether that thing and what you're doing with that works or not. It's very pure in that way and very quick. So that's the great thing about it. And also the terrible thing, because right now, nope, doesn't work.
And I love seeing those comics that are like, all right, that didn't work.
Yeah.
Next one. I've known a couple of stand-ups, and I certainly have my favorite stand-ups. How does somebody start? Are you just writing stupid jokes until they get less and less witty?
I think that's part of it, yeah. I was told, the advice I was given was find somebody and write at least 5 minutes of funny good stuff, and I did that. I worked with somebody, and it just happened that they had been a copywriter And that was like their job, but it was like, I thought, oh, this, I worked worked in a pub, and, had a regular come in who was always saying funny stuff, and I was like, hey, do you want to write a little bit of stuff? And, we came up with this thing that I used for years. Sometimes it's great to work with people on ideas, and then it's also really important to develop and find your own voice.
Yeah.
But in the beginning, I did start, the notebook, carrying it around for a long, long time until I felt like I've got 5 minutes, and then, going to an open mic, and then, doing rinse repeat from there. Yeah, that's kind of the process that a lot of people do. Although I know quite a few, like more recently, there are some good classes that people have taken to try. But I did what I do with everything that I want to learn about, which is I go to the library to get a book.
Really?
And so I went to the Lincoln Center for the Performing Arts Library and got Judy Carter's stand-up comedy book. Yeah, who I later got to meet, and she was lovely at the one of the comedy festivals, and got to tell her, like, you had a really big impact on, like, me writing my own material and getting started, and,
wow.
and say thank you,
Wow.
Yeah.
And you were on the road, so you were really hitting stand up in New York, right?
New York, and then in LA as well, but I found it a little bit harder to do comedy in Los Angeles because the cities are so much further apart.
Yeah.
And so I was spending a lot more time driving through the desert. And but I was making my living doing that for years. I ran a room in New York, and I'd have everybody come down from, people who were writing on the Daily Show, people who were very successful established comedians, because everybody will do a show if there's an audience there, even if you're not paying them, because that's the only way that you can try out your material.
Right.
Because, like I said, the audience will tell you.
Right.
So you got to find an audience, and if there's somewhere out there, even if they're, an upstart and don't have any money for you, you'd still get people with Emmys on their mantles coming down and doing the show. So I ran that show for a couple of years with some great guys, and we ran it every Sunday night in the Village, which had a lot of foot traffic, so we could get people to come in. We always had an audience, even if there was a blizzard. We'd put on a show, and that was a big part of just like anything else. You just keep doing it, even if nobody's paying you for it, until somebody does eventually. And excited to do it. Find something about it that's fun. Otherwise, it's a drag, and when they do pay you, you're bitter and dry and. Unless that's your character.
I had it coming, damn it. But it's funny because it circles back to one of the things that I love so much about you and Philip is that you put your art where your mouth is. You guys are working things. You're put up a show. We're going to shoot this thing. Why? Because we want to shoot it. Because every time we do, we're honing our muscles. We're learning to write better. We're learning to act it better. We're learning to shoot it better. We're learning, like, I just so love that. And that is really, I admire it. I envy it because I want to kind of feed that in myself, that spirit. It's real easy for me to just be like, oh, God, I can't even think about, you know what, this couch is not going to lay on itself, so I'm going to have to be the one to do that. But when you guys are like, oh, we want to show you this. Hey, check this out. I'm like, yeah, cool. We sit down up in front of the TV when you guys are in town, and you're like, you show us some incredible thing that you guys threw together, and it's like, I'm so envious. I want to do that, and I know I just need to do it, but I say all that just to say that you guys are doing it, and I love it. You guys are like artists, and I love that, and it so feeds me. It so inspires me, and it's one of the reasons why we're going to have you come teach at the studio. Talk a little bit about what it is you're going to be teaching.
Improv. We're doing improv, but we can also do voiceover things later, but we're going to do improv. And what I'm excited about doing is working with actors who maybe haven't done a ton of improv. And my very first improv class was with Gary Austin. He was the founder of the Groundlings, created that school. which built the careers of so many people that we love to laugh at and enjoy the performances of. And so he is really, you know, in the echelon of improv in the world, right up there, and was a treasure to work with. And my class was very different from what people would think a person who started that school would be like, because we improvised scenes as actors, not comedians doing characters. And I want to honor him and do some of the kind of things that we did with him with my own spin on that. So we won't be doing yuckety yuck, have fun, create big comedy characters. We'll be merging the beautiful world of scripts, of people who work with scripts, usually into the same kind of work that you get with a script without one. And what that feels like. So if you're ever asked to do it, or the director doesn't call cut, and you don't know what the heck you should be doing, at the end of my class, there would never be a question of what you would be doing if the director hasn't called cut. You would still be living the life of that character. And that's what we'll be doing. But I'm also having some fun.
Yeah.
Chickens could be involved.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yes. I won't make anyone be a chicken.
You okay? No.
Mixed signals.
Maybe mixed signals a little bit. This is so important. This is so important, because every actor I work with, and I mean every actor I work with, is so stuck up in their heads that there's no room for discovery. Like, I've got to throw pillows at them and beat them to like just be present. I was talking with a guy the other day who's a director, and he said, yeah, I started studying acting, and then after a while I was like, wait a minute, it's just listen and react? Yeah. That's it.
Yeah.
Listen and react. You got a fucking opinion.
But once you have a paper in your hand, everything changes. So you'll see. I mean, some of these students who will be there will get to see what it feels like to have that same, the thing that you work towards, which is like getting rid of it seeming like you ever had a piece of paper, to like living like that paper had been there, like a real story had been there, but nothing is there. Like you're a real human in a real situation.
Yes.
And none of it is planned, but you've got a net, and I give you the net, and you're going to be safe, and it's going to be great, and it's going to be like flying, and it's going to be awesome.
Giving up control.
Yeah.
And trusting what's in your head.
It's not easy, but it's very important.
I think I might actually could use some of that.
We all can.
Yeah.
It's like, why not? Let's do it. Let's play.
Yeah, honey, can we book me out so I can take her class? Okay. I think I might be taking your class.
Okay.
Yeah, I could use it. We have an ongoing thing in the house here, in Casa Tony. Toilet paper.
Mm-hmm.
In front or behind?
I think that in front is the way to go.
Are you a behind man as well? Philip and I are behind men.
We're talking about
odd.
the way the toilet paper hangs on the toilet paper roll.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, I stand by my answer.
Okay, the ladies are in front. And Ashley just walked out the door.
Because you can
To
fold
demonstrate?
it. You can fold it.
To demonstrate, because we are... So you like it from your perspective like this.
Yeah, because then you can do origami, and you can talk to it and be like, what are you doing? I mean, you can do this. It becomes a puppet. Look. I mean, there's a lot that can happen here. Turn it around.
So...
Now look what can happen. Nothing. You could draw on it, I guess, but you could have drawn on it the other way too.
I beg to differ.
More fun for your money. And cut.